You hear that? We're all being recorded here. It's all good. I won't put this anywhere scary. Um, and then from there, we're going to try and keep this thing somewhere in the 20 to 30 minute range, depending upon just how many questions there are. Everybody here knows that I'm extremely long-winded and I'll talk forever. So if you have a good question, buckle in. We're going to be chatting. I labeled this very first one, how diesel dads define healthy eating, because it's a really interesting thing how when people come to us, they're kind of looking for three major goals. The first one being the immediate goal, like I look in the mirror, I don't like what I see, and I need to lose weight. And that's kind of like the very surface level goal, right? And then when we actually get to talk to them and say, well, why are we doing this? Like, well, I'd like to have confidence or competence. Those are kind of like the underlying core concepts of like why people want to look good. When they walk into a room, they want to have some sort of shape of a body that has a strong look to it. They look lean. It shows that they are in control of what's going on. And a lot of that comes down to just a general physique that when someone sees you, you kind of pass the check mark of like, oh, wow, that person is in shape. They have control of training. They have control of nutrition. And even if somebody doesn't think about that stuff, they can look at your jawline and go, that guy is doing the right thing. They don't know what it is, but they know what it looks like. And then as we dig in a little bit deeper, there always is these long-term underlying concerns about health. And depending upon like how long you've been in the conversation of health and nutrition, fitness, whatever it is, you enter typically at one of those 3 points. Nobody in the history of the Diesel Dad mentorship has walked in and gone, I'd like to stand on stage at Olympia. Like that doesn't exist. We're not making money with our bodies here, right? We're all trying to create a leadership role, whether it's in our households as dads, as husbands, or in our professional careers. And we want to portray the person that is successful, that is a leader, that establishes qualities without having to say, oh, I work out really hard. We don't have to answer those questions anymore because it looks like we work out really hard. We have a body that mirrors the values that we have. So depending upon where you come into this conversation and how long you've been around fitness and nutrition, that really is kind of the framework for the 3 concepts that I want to lay out today, and how we really define and how we meet the demands of all 3 of those categories. So there's 3 really overlying principles of nutrition, right? Calories, there's macronutrients, and then there's micronutrients. And when we think about calories, what comes to mind is, I think everybody could widely agree that if we're going to lose weight, we need to eat less calories, which that would be correct. If you wanted to gain weight, you would eat more calories. So overall, calories is a good metric for understanding the size of the body you would like to have. If you saw the amount of food that people standing on stage at Mr. Olympia eat, you would think those people would be 300 pounds and obese. And if you saw the amount of calories that say like a long distance runner in order to keep their weight down so they're not carrying around a bunch, they eat a very low caloric diet. Even though their metabolism, because they're running miles and miles a day, is really high, they're still eating a relatively low caloric intake to keep their weight down so they're not carrying 250 pounds across the finish line for a marathon, something along those lines. So when we start to think about what are calories, the more you eat, the bigger your body is going to be. The fewer you eat, the smaller your body is going to be. And as you start to break those 3 categories down, we then get into kind of category 2 of or goal set number 2, which is, well, I don't want to just be small because that's like the skinny fat thing. What I want to do is build this like strong, lean, athletic looking body. I want to look like a sprinter. So how do we do that? Well, that's where we get into level 2, which is the macro conversation, macronutrients, so proteins, fats, and carbs. And that when we start to, if we were to put like a single word to it, that's going to be how we design body composition. So when everyone is going through their program and you start to see those higher end numbers on protein and those higher end numbers on carbohydrates because we lift weights and some moderate numbers for fat, your body composition and the way that you look is most likely is going to be tied to the macronutrient profile that you are able to sustain over time. You'll notice as you go through the program that your body weight, whether it's going up or down, depending upon what phase of the program, your protein numbers are going to stay very consistent throughout the entire program. And that's because protein is the most important thing in building muscle, as well as we want an overwhelming amount of the total caloric intake to come from protein, because in the lab, they have proven that there is no amount of chicken breast that you can eat that is going to cause you to get fat. You will never eat too much protein in which you are then storing excess body fat. And there's many reasons for it. But one, when we think about our metabolism and how we actually burn calories, there's kind of three main phases to it, right? We're working out. We'll just look at our workouts and why lifting weights is so important. When we work out, we're burning the energy while we're doing it. And this is where the argument gets really weird on this side of, should I go running to burn calories or should I lift weights to burn calories? Because if you went for a 5-mile run, you would technically burn more calories going for a 5-mile run than you would doing EMOM aesthetics for 25 minutes in a day. So why do we want to lift weights more than
how about you just bring me some
hold on, Robert, hold on, I'm
on,
muting you. Hold on.
That or Xanax, one.
Robert, mute yourself.
Okay.
There it is. Crushed it, buddy. So if you're burning more calories while you are in running for 5 miles versus doing EMOM aesthetics, why are we so into you doing EMOM aesthetics and lifting weights over doing the running piece? If the goal is to lower the caloric intake or to increase the calories burned while being in a caloric deficit, creating fat loss. Well, the reason is because the way that your metabolism works, we want that thing burning at a high level all day long. So not only when you lift weights are you going to be increasing your metabolism by increasing your energy output by doing the workouts, but now we have to recover as well. Does that make sense? So we're going from doing the work to now we have to increase our metabolism to get protein and carbohydrates to the musculature to repair the broken down muscle tissue. Then it's also significantly more expensive for your body to maintain muscle. So we have to keep that muscle going forward to meet the demands of life. So when we're lifting weights, we're kind of getting a 3-pronged approach here to increase in metabolic function and using excess energy because we're in a caloric deficit to keep the muscle while we're having less calories come in on a daily basis. So yes, you will burn more calories in a 5-mile run than doing EMOM aesthetics, which is cool. I'm totally fine with that. What you lose when you run the 5 miles is the metabolic effect over having to rebuild the muscle over the next couple days and maintaining the muscle. On top of that, protein is so expensive on the digestion side. For every gram of protein that you eat, you get roughly 65 to 70% of that actually digested because it takes about 30% of the calories that come in from protein just for it to go through your digestive system. Just to get the food, just to get a chicken breast broken down into the amino acids that get delivered to your muscles to be used to build muscle, it takes about 30% of the total calories. So those numbers have to be very high. And that is why we push those numbers up to wherever, right about where your lean body mass is. Because over time, we want you to get comfortable eating the protein. We need you to be repairing. We need you to get stronger. And we need you to be able to maintain that muscle, which is just extremely expensive from the digestion all the way to the maintenance. The entire way, we need to have high levels of protein so that we can make, build, repair, and maintain the muscle. Does that make sense to everybody? So the macronutrient profile really is where your physique is. That's where the muscle gets made. And with being in a caloric deficit, so that we're getting a little smaller, we're able to increase muscle, or we're able to maintain slightly increased muscle while being in a deficit, so that your body is getting a little smaller, but we're keeping as much of the good stuff as possible. Now we get into kind of like the third level. And there's a couple of people on the phone right now, Tim and Jim specifically, that we have done a bunch of testing with. I've gone through the protocol myself, but we start to talk about micronutrients, right? There's like the alphabet of vitamins and minerals that go into, I don't even know what all of them do, to be honest with you. It's insanity what all of them do, how much of each one you're supposed to have, how deficient you are in specific micronutrients. But when we think about micronutrients, what I personally think about is health. So when someone comes to me and they say, I want to be healthy, I need to lose weight. And I go, okay, well, step one, if you want to lose weight, means you want to get smaller. So we need to reduce the caloric intake. We need to find out what your maintenance is. And then over time, we're going to slowly reduce it, just like we're doing with everybody here. But not only that, we want to have a macronutrient profile that allows you to keep and build muscle so that you're getting the physique that you want. But then we have to get down into the health side of things. And that is where we start to get into the micronutrients and how we're able to stack those throughout a day so that you're getting a wide variety of micronutrients, as well as the vitamins and minerals that kind of go into that. And the way that we do that comes down to food quality. It comes down to having a variety of foods, fruits, vegetables, and meats that you're eating. That way, as you if you reverse the idea of thinking that I am eating to provide muscle or provide energy and protein to my muscles, and you kind of change the framework from I'm eating to do that to, well, now I'm feeding my gut biome a variety of foods so that I have a very healthy gut to be able to create as many bacteria and healthy things going on in there. So the caloric intake, we want to think about as that's how big or little you are going to be. The macronutrient profile, where many of us are right now, and that's like our sweet spot, because we're looking to get into we're looking to lose fat and build a strong, lean, and athletic body. That's going to be our physique. And then when we get into the micronutrients, we want to have as many colors on our plate. We want to have a wide variety of meats that we eat, a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. And that is where we start to prioritize health, by getting as many of the fruits and vegetables that we can get into our diet without ever having to take supplements, etc. And if you were to ever go get tested to find out where those deficiencies are, that's a lot of where we can start to add supplements and things into your diet so that we were able to fill those deficiencies, and then we can layer really healthy habits with nutritional choices. Does that make sense to everybody? I hope I explained that well. And kind of like the three ways that we meet you where you're at and your specific goals, and at the same time to be able to break down what calories are and why we track them, macronutrients, what they are, how they're used, and our goal with adjusting the macros as we do, and then where health really comes into the picture, and how micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals, all play out to make you as healthy as possible. Are we all good? That was my 10-minute rant for the day. I appreciate it all. Now this thing's all you. Robert, I don't know how you became the main person I'm looking at. I don't know if that's for everybody, unless there we go.
I'm a dominating figure.
Now I'm back. I just pinned myself, so no one can take over. Look at that too. 20 minutes. I told you guys talk way too long. Hey, we're in a place now. We've got 10. I'll stay here as long as we really need to, but we got about 10 minutes for any Q&A. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any questions on the last 10, 15 minutes of me talking, what do you got? You can just speak up because we have, I'll be able to hear you as soon as you unmute.
Anders, you mentioned just a lot of emerging research regarding not really being able to get too much protein in terms of the benefits that it will confer, right?
Yeah.
Are there some downsides associated with that?
I have never heard any, to be honest with you. I know people that are really pushing the limits on the higher end.
Yeah.
I think that they're, and I'm talking about like 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight.
Mhm.
So you're talking a 200-pound person eating 400 grams of protein, which equates to like 4 pounds of meat a day.
Yeah.
Here's where I think a lot of the stuff may get lost. And all proteins are not created equal. How about this? Let me back up. All meat is not created equal. There's a massive difference between eating a ribeye and a lean chicken breast. And the amount of fat content that goes into that is something that you have to be very aware of. Can you go and eat a ribeye and still get away with it? For sure. We just want to be aware of what's going on the other side. And that's really where we want to be tracking the total caloric intake. So we're just very aware, because if you do eat ribeyes 6 times a day, you're going to be getting hundreds of grams of fat throughout the day, as well as the protein. So the leaner cuts of meats are going to be a much healthier option. I think a really safe high end for where you need to be on protein, or where you would want to be, like 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. And that's really at the high end. Once you get past that, I don't see a ton of benefits. I mean, I've been as high on a very consistent basis when I was training very, very hard, like 300 a day, eating like 3 pounds of meat a day. It's just an insane amount.
It's exhausting.
It's super exhausting. And I'm like 0.8 grams a day per pound of body weight right now, which is lower than it's ever really been, because I'm more interested mainly in maintaining muscle mass and having a lifestyle that I don't have to eat meat that often. So is there research on extremely high ends? I think that you're going to be safe no matter what level of protein intake, specifically just the protein. It's when the fat is combined into that of many of the fattier cuts of meat that we start to run into issues. And I think you just get really grossed out and you stop eating chicken breasts. There's like a meter in your body that says no need to do this anymore. You've gone far enough.
So, Anders, with that, what about protein supplement? What's a rough percentage that you would say is maybe, I'm not going to say the best, because I think trying to get protein through meat's probably the best, right? But let's say supplementing, is it 15%, 20, 25%?
Of like your total day?
Yeah, so let's say most of us are probably somewhere in 150 to 200 grams of protein a day.
Yeah, I think that, so if we were to think about like 1 scoop of standard protein powder, you're getting about 22 grams of protein per scoop. Most people are probably taking 2 scoops per shake, whether it's pre-workout, post-workout, you're in a pinch, there's no food around. Awesome. I do it almost daily. So I would recommend that you stick to maybe 1 of those a day in an ideal situation. And that's going to equate to roughly 30%. If I'm eating 160 grams of protein, we can kind of do the math, 40 into 160s, that's 20%, 25%, 30%, 33%, right? 40, 80, 120. 160, 25%.
Yeah, so somewhere in that range, right? 30,
Yeah.
35%.
Yeah. There's also some things that you can do on the food timing side. So if you are eating, say a protein shake is going to be a part of your day, the closer you can time that to your workout, either pre-workout or post-workout, is going to be the most optimal, because your body's looking for replenishment. It's looking to get the protein into your muscles. Everything is like focused. All the blood is in your muscles already, transporting those macronutrients, the shake basically right into your muscles is going to be much easier to get it there. If you are going to be doing it as an actual meal replacement, like you're just in a tight spot, I highly recommend just eating like a small scoop of peanut butter or something like that with it, just to slow down the digestion process. That way it's not just like coming in. It's so processed by being in a liquid form that you really want to actually slow it down unless it's right around your workout. But yeah, I would say in between 20 and 30% of your total daily caloric and protein intake is about best.
Anders, what are
And
your
that's
thoughts
going-
about? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Marcus.
What are your thoughts about supplements like creatine that aren't necessarily needed as part of a balanced diet, but have been proven to be safe and effective? Like, where does that fit in, particularly if you're trying to like bulk versus cut?
Creatine is the most researched supplement that exists. And from the cognitive benefits to muscle to, you should absolutely take it. I say absolutely take it, and I still don't, mainly because I just don't take a lot of supplements. I take a protein shake. Right now I'm in the middle of the thing that I'm going to send you. So you'll see kind of like my daily thing, but it's a very like 6 month long thing that I'm doing to get rid of a bunch of gut bacteria issues that I have. And it's like very specific to stuff that I have going on. But outside of that, I'm like a protein shake, and that's really it. I don't take fish oils in the morning. I try really hard to get as much of the stuff just from food as possible. But if I had to give you like the things that have been very tested or like tested countless times and are very safe and effective, creatine's at the top of the list. Whey protein, if you don't have a milk issue, EPA, DHA, fish oils. Those are kind of like the three big ones. Maybe a multivitamin that is just going to help with some of the just vitamin and mineral deficiencies that you may have, just kind of like spreading like a big blanket over a lot of things. And then I totally recommend getting some like Organifi green drinks and stuff like that. Those things are pretty good at helping on the micronutrient side of things. It's really hard to get such a wide variety of things, of micros, when we live in the world that we live in today. I think there was one other person, you guys were talking over each other a little bit. I don't remember who it was though. We got time. I don't have a call coming up right now, so we can talk away.
And there's anything that you can recommend to kind of help, aside from, the obvious things, sleep and other things to help recovery, and just, getting older as we all are. It's like, that's my one huge problem is recovery is just, my legs are still sore from Monday. This sort of thing.
Yeah. So the easiest thing that I think that you can do to, this is like such a maturity, I'm going to call it maturity. I would just back things down like 1 degree when you're training. If you're getting, so the thing that's interesting about like being sore and needing, you can either do a little bit less and get basically the same outcome in the gym. And they put things like RPE, rate of perceived exertion, RIR, which is reps in reserve. And yes, going to failure does a lot of really good things for your body here and there. But if we're really like pushing to failure every single day and getting so sore that like finding the toilet in the morning is like, and you're like arms on the wall, like this is the longest fall I've ever had. Like I don't even know if I can get down there. We've gone too far. So when it comes to the specific like EMOM aesthetics workouts, the way that I do them, and there's many ways based on whatever percentages are coming up, but give yourself for the workouts that are going on, even though it says EMOM and you're supposed to work the full minute, or there's a mindset like I got to go crush it for the whole minute and I got to get every last rep in the minute. Try to pick like a big exercise, like we'll just call it front squats. Try to get strong doing the strongest, biggest exercise that exists. And in order to get strong, you need to be doing reps somewhere in the 3 to 6 range. So you don't need to go and do 12 if it's a weight that is like really hard to do for 5. And it's going to keep the volume a lot lower, so you're just beating your legs up a lot less. And then you can find 2 exercises that are inside that workout that look more like assistance exercises or accessory movements. And I would pick those to be in kind of like an 8 to 12 rep range, but picking a weight that may be challenging, but it's not front squat heavy. Like it's not like excruciating. It's more of like a single joint type movement. And then I would pick the smallest exercise of those 4 and try to pick, call it 15 to 18 reps to do in that minute. So you're using significantly lighter weight, getting a lot more reps. A lot of times, those exercises look like more postural type exercises. So you're thinking about like reverse flies, maybe some like YW, I can't remember all the directions.
Yeah.
Those. So when those things show up, those are really about keeping your joints really healthy and activating, like being really tight in your core and then really hitting all the tiny muscles in your shoulders, and moving weights in a really structurally balanced way. So if you're taking weights in kind of the front squat of that and you're just pushing it so hard every minute that it's like just wrecking you the next day, one, you can back the weights down a little bit, but also realize that maybe you increase the weights, but you only do 3 reps, or you're doing 5 reps on a heavy day that you want to get some volume and you slept great and all that. I think it's easier to do slightly less or to structure it in a smarter way than to think that you're just going to like magically get half an hour of sleep more and it's going to make a world of difference. Typically we can just tailor the amount of volume and the intensity that we're doing during the workouts to be less sore, because soreness is a really tricky thing. It's going to be there no matter what. And yeah, we do want you to go to failure every once in a while. It's kind of like playing at the edge is important. But on a week to week, day to day basis, I like to think of staying in like a rate of perceived exertion of like 85 or 8.5, 85%, where you know you're doing really good work, but you're not crippling yourself for the week.
Yeah, I seem to have found this spot where I've gotten lighter, I've gotten healthier, and my perceived rate of exertion is totally different.
Yeah.
And so I walk out of it going like, you realize I did a lot more than I was doing before, and it's a little trap, I guess. I don't know.
Absolutely. So you get in better shape, you can do more work, and you're doing more work in a shorter or in the exact same period of time, which is an increase in volume. So you're going to be it's like the equation is completely logical, right? So what I would do is I would actually try to increase the weights so that you're staying, and we don't test new 1RM. So you may have put like 40 pounds on your front squat and you're still using these light weights and just down and up, and you're crushing yourself. So I would actually have you increase the weight that you're putting on the bar. That way you can't do as many reps. Mainly just because we don't retest 1RMs. Like that's not the point of the program. And if you wanted to, just then we have new numbers. But I think for the most part, increase the weight, lower the reps on the big lift. Think about an 8 to 12 rep range for everything that's going on in like the 2 assistance exercises. And then find one that's more like a structural type looking movement, and go for like 15 with pretty lightweight, realizing that like some things are meant to be done slow and controlled, and they're there to just keep healthy joints and injury free.
I think that resonates with me too. Like you said, I find myself, I'm like, oh, it's front squat day again. I got to get more reps. I got to put another 5 pounds on the bar. I got to be under tension for 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And then, my body composition goals are out the window because I'm so freaking hungry that I just want to eat all day after doing that,
Yeah. I mean, so I have this overall theory on why we lift weights to begin with. And what we're trying to do is create an environment that is very challenging to live in which you have to be strong in order to survive. But there's nowhere on this planet that is actually needed, right? Like I was at a coffee shop 30 minutes ago with free Wi-Fi talking to Doug for 2 hours. Like, it's not hard to survive. So how do we signal to our body that, hey, you have to be strong? Building muscle is important. How do we do? Well, we lift weights, and our body and our brain have to work together to meet the demands of this ecosystem that we create, in which if you don't lift the weight, it's going to crush you. So that, I don't know how like Andy Galpin would feel about that analysis, but or that theory, but it makes sense that that's why. And then as we get strong enough to be able to meet the demands of today's ecosystem, because we get stronger, well, we got to make it harder, and we got to make it harder, and we got to make it harder. Yes, we want to be able to do 1 extra rep each week, but we can also add 10 pounds to the bar and do the exact same number, and keep the volume a lot lower. Those are going to be things, especially when it comes to like single leg movements. Like that stuff will just wreck you for a week. If you're taking the same weight and in 4 weeks, you've added 4 reps to like a rear foot elevated split squat, you're going to be walking funky for a long time. Like the entire 16 to 32 weeks of being in the program is just going to be
front squats and split squats this last week.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that picking rep ranges, and then increasing or decreasing the weight of those specific exercises to meet those rep ranges is a very good way to think of a strategy to going into those days. Who's next?
Hey, Anders, I had a question back to the macronutrient conversation. You talk a lot about protein, but as far as carbs and fat go, if you eat more fat and less carbs, or the other way around, are you sabotaging your physique in any way? Are you increasing your body fat? If you eat too much fat and less carbs, are you increasing your body fat directly because you're eating more fat or something?
Nope. Carbs and fat. So there's a term called metabolic flexibility. And if you've ever listened to us interview Dr. Michael T. Nelson, it's kind of like his thing. He has a metabolic flexibility cert, which I think is a really, really good thing if you are interested in taking a certification on just nutrition. All of the work, I shouldn't say all the work, he's done tons of work, but one of the big things that he works on is this certification, and that's because that's where he got his PhD, and that's kind of his sweet spot. The idea of metabolic flexibility is that at any point in time, our body should be able to access carbohydrates, and it should be able to access fats for energy to get the exact same result. So when we think about carbohydrates and fats as a fuel source, carbohydrates are like It's like really cheap gas. Like we can burn it up so fast, right? And that's how we lift weights, because we lift weights for like 30 seconds at a time. Like a really long set, like the most grueling 20 rep back squat that you've ever done, where you feel like you're gonna die. It's like 3 minutes. It still is like a very carbohydrate specific thing. If you think about running a marathon, you're going at like 60% intensity for 5 hours. That is like a big fat source thing. You never really want to be, if you're burning carbohydrates while you're running a marathon, you started out way too fat. You started out sprinting. You shouldn't have done that. You should have slowed down a lot. So the idea of metabolic flexibility is that at any point in time, if we have carbohydrates available, we can use those, and we want to be able to use those for those short, intense bouts of effort. And then for longer, slower things, we want to be able to transition very seamlessly into a fat burning source for lower intensity movements. Where your body gets those energy, or where it gets that fuel, and how efficient it is at using them, kind of is the idea of metabolic flexibility, and that it doesn't matter. On the body comp side, there's a little bit more research that carbohydrates are going to have a better body comp, because I want to say it's like 3% of carbohydrates actually get stored as fat or adipose tissue, subcutaneous fat, where all excess fat is going to get stored on your body as fat. So those are like I don't really care. As long as our caloric intake is lower, if you enjoy eating a higher fat diet, you can totally eat a higher fat diet. If you like carbohydrates more, awesome. One beautiful thing about carbohydrates is that you're going to, like, just looking at like fruit, you get to eat like triple the amount of fruit than you would like 1 spoon of peanut butter. Like a spoon of peanut butter goes so quick, but try eating 3 apples and thinking you need more. It just doesn't happen. So on the total food volume side, you catch a lot of breaks with carbohydrates. You'll enjoy them more. They're sweet, they're delicious. But if you enjoy eating fat, get after it. Just make sure that the calories stay intact. And when you're talking to Chris, just make sure he knows that, so he can adjust things as needed. There's some tweaks and stuff on like a personalized basis to the program that we would want to see. But overall, on a performance side of things, carbohydrates, short-term, easy fuel for higher intensity work. Fat is going to be a little bit trickier of a thing for your body to burn. That's why it does it for the like low intensity efforts. And then on a body comp thing, there's a slight lean towards having a higher carbohydrate diet than high fat. And then on the food volume side, carbohydrates, unanimous, undisputed champion. That's why bodybuilders, if you've ever watched like a bodybuilding documentary, which I probably watched way too many of, they sit there and they eat white fish and white rice all day long, like thousands and thousands of calories of pure white fish and white rice. And then they lower their fat down to a very unhealthy amount. It's like very, very unhealthy how little they eat, but it's thousands of calories of white fish and white rice. So on the body comp side, if eating more fat was more beneficial, you bet they would be eating more fat. But it's a slight nod to the carbohydrates. Anybody else? Crushed it, team. I'm going to get an email out. This thing's being recorded, so we'll be able to post the replay. I'm not exactly sure. We might be getting it into the just building a folder of these as we roll them out. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so not next Thursday, the following Thursday. I'm either going to get them up in a Dropbox link, or we're going to be uploading them to where the Diesel Dad nutrition course is. This was rad. Thanks for everybody asking questions, being a part of it, listen to me. This is cool. If you guys have any additional questions, please shoot them over in an email, and I'll make sure I either cover them on the next one, but I'll definitely write back to you as well, and we'll get it all handled. Cool.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Anders.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Later.
Easy.